Good evening, everyone. I'm Kyle Lancaster. I'm the city's Parks and Recreation Director, and we're going to kick this off on time. We have a Parks and Recreation Master Plan workshop for you. I will be joined today by Nilay Bhatt, Principal with Pros Consulting, and we will be providing this presentation with other city staff and pro staff in the background to assist with questions that come during the course of this meeting. Nilay will advise you shortly as to how to submit those questions, but I'm going to kick it off first with the purpose of the workshop. It's to share the master planning process and how you can participate in it, and really to obtain your input on Parks and Recreation offerings in Carlsbad, and particularly whether or not those needs have changed since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, we're still in the midst of the pandemic to some degree. It's one of the reasons why we're doing this workshop virtually. We essentially had to put a pause on our master planning process about 20 months ago. We started in early 2020, including a couple of in-person workshops in February that some of you may have attended, gathered significant input at that time. But again, since the onset of the pandemic, over the last 20 months, many of our duties and programs have been redirected as a result of the impacts from the pandemic. And we are at a point now where we want to pick this process up again, check in with you, see if anything has changed, compile that information with the previous input we received in 2020, and then move forward to creating an updated master plan. So let's next talk about what's included in this master planning process. It's a system-wide Parks and Recreation master plan. So essentially all of our parks inventory and our recreation programs will be a part of this evaluation process, and potential for expanding, for changing in some fashion. So again, it's through our entire inventory and something that we will look at in a comprehensive manner. This updated master plan will really serve as a roadmap, if you will, to guide future decisions regarding Parks and Recreation sites and programs and services. Now, ideally, the plan is updated about every 5 years, and that's per National Parks and Recreation Agency accreditation guidelines. Again, in this case, due to the COVID pandemic, we've had to make it more like a 7+ year plan. But I can assure you that we've been continuing to work on the existing plan, and we've made considerable progress. We will report that out to you later in this presentation. So it really has served as an ideal roadmap for us, and there will be tangible results that I will share in several minutes. Let's move on to what's not included. So it does not include non-open space properties, such as residential properties, for example. It also does not include site-specific plans for any one park. We do create site-specific plans for individual parks as they are coming through a separate permitting process. And so that would be something like Veterans Memorial Park, which is currently in the final stages of master planning, and it will also be going through Coastal Commission review, our planning division and planning commission review. So again, specific parks will have their own individual plan. This plan is more comprehensive, as I mentioned before, and global in nature. So it also does not speak to trails, preserves, or beaches. And the reason for that is we have a separate trails master plan that was adopted in August of 2019 by the City Council. We have a separate preserve management plan, which was just adopted this week, actually. The updated plan for the next 5 years was adopted on Tuesday night of this week. And beaches in the city of Carlsbad are largely under the ownership and control of the state Parks and Recreation Department. So 6 of our 7 miles of beaches within Carlsbad are actually owned by state parks. Thus, again, they will not be part of this particular master planning process. So let's talk about desired outcomes now. Obviously, it's to maximize our community engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what's important to you. We do take this very seriously. We implement much of the information we receive. And again, there will be evidence of that later in the presentation. We also want to integrate our learnings from agencies nationwide. That's one of the reasons why PROS Consulting was chosen as the firm to assist us with this process. They are not only a national but international recognized firm, and they bring a lot of information to the table that we can share with the public and we can also benefit from as staff. So we also want to create a diversity of offerings and availability of access to those offerings as part of this process. It's imperative for us to be able to reach the larger population and meet communities' needs where they are. Additionally, we want to be able to financially plan for this in a sustainable manner through next practices, essentially budgeting accordingly to these needs and ensuring that we have adequate resources to meet as many of the needs as possible. And lastly, we want a dynamic and realistic strategic plan, an action plan that can be put into place, and we can use it really as a checklist of items as we go through with capital improvement program projects or recreation programming. As we're able to achieve those particular items, we say, great, that's covered, let's move on to the next one, and so forth. So it's really a dynamic process, and it continues to evolve, and we do check back in on it on a routine basis as well. With that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Nilay Bhatt. He will be taking polls and describing some of the previous information that we've obtained dating back to February of 2020. Nilay, take it away, please.
Excellent. Thank you, Kyle, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining this virtual meeting as well. I see about 45 plus participants. We want to get a sense of, again, a little bit of the background of just, who's actually in the meeting right now. But just a couple of housekeeping items to remind you of. We want to hear from you throughout this virtual meeting as well. If you have any comments, and I see right now as well, Mr. Michael Ladinick has a really good point here about the importance of outdoor recreation facilities, opportunities, etc. during the pandemic, especially. Any input of that sort, please continue typing in the chat box. If you have questions of us that you want us to speak to as well, either during or afterwards, please go to the Q&A section and post your questions. We will speak through every one of those questions during the presentation itself or at the end of this presentation. So I'm going to launch a few polls here as well. If in any of the poll choices you don't see what you have, we've tried to keep an other or an open-ended option, and feel free to type in the chat box at that time as well to be able to share your input. And I say this because, as Kyle mentioned, we think of next practices, I think of innovative and leading agencies. I remember in 2013 coming for public meetings in Carlsbad and hearing for the first time of a sport called pickleball. I'd never heard of it. We didn't know what it is. Now we know it's the fastest growing sport in the country. The reason I share that is because there are things we may not even know that we don't know, and we'd love to hear from the entire community throughout the process. So please continue engaging. I am going to open up a poll and we will start getting the questions for those right now. So the first one here is just to get a sense of the profile of the audience. So I've got 3 questions here. Please feel free and answer them for your 8 segment, as well as how many people are participating with you in the meeting right now, and what zip code do you live in? That's great. I see the responses coming in quickly. Fantastic, everybody. 8 segments. How many people are with you in this meeting? And your zip code. I've got about almost 80% of you have answered already. Just waiting on a few others, and then I will show you the results. Mr. Otto, as well as Mr. Bradshaw, if you have any questions, please feel free to go to the Q&A section and type those in, please. That would be great. Okay, going once, going twice. I'm going to end the poll here. And let's see the results. So here is the audience profile. I see about 48% are in the ages of 55 to 74. A third of you are the ages of 35 to 54, 10% 18 to 34, and 10% 75 plus. This is great. Only half of you are watching this by yourself. 45%, a third of you have at least one other person with you, and 10% have two other people, and 3% of the attendees have 3 or more people watching with you. That is great. By far the most popular zip code, 92008, followed by 92011. And we've got about 23% of you that are in other zip codes, which I see a number of you have put in the chat box. So this is very helpful. Thank you for that. Now, I want to move on from this here to actually speak a little bit about the process itself. 3 major steps with any strategic master planning process and a master plan update like this. Where are we today? Where are we going to go? And how will we get there? So different times, which is why, to Kyle's point, like we said, we want to get a sense of what is still the same from your input before, what may have changed during the time of the pandemic and where we are now. Where do you want us to go? And especially looking at your demographics, looking at trends, where are we going as a community? And then at the end of the process, we'll talk to how the roadmap and the action plan looks like to eventually get it implemented. You've done an exceptionally good job implementing the previous plan, which Kyle's going to show you, and we want to continue ensuring that happens again as well. So some of the key elements in terms of how we get there, and those are some of the pieces with prioritization of the needs. That piece is where your input begins to make a difference. Your input through this entire process and a number of mechanisms is what will help drive the priority of the needs, which in turn then help influence the capital development and improvement plans and all the other planning, ultimately leading to the strategic action plan as well. So it all begins with the community needs and your input as well to drive that. So some of the mediums we're going to be using, I would love for you to bookmark right now, if you haven't already, carlsbadparksplan.com. This is an ADA accessible, mobile friendly website. This is where all meetings, including today's and the upcoming one, have access for registration. As we have the online survey, as we develop different parts of the report, you will get to see all of this in real time on the website. This webinar is being recorded as well. And tomorrow we will also be uploading this webinar on the website. So anybody that misses it, anybody that wants to go back and see it, you have a chance to do so as well. Besides that, a number of stakeholder interviews and focus groups have been conducted with various user groups. We had open public meetings in person earlier. We're following up with virtual meetings. We've done some intercept surveys, meeting people in the parks, and all of this input will then be taken to help create the statistically reliable survey, the online survey, and so on as we go through the process. If there is something you forget, you didn't think of speaking to today, carlsbadparksplan.com also has open-ended comment boxes where you can share your input throughout the planning process. So please continue to engage and let us know as you have needs for the future, what you want this plan to be able to recommend. This is a snapshot of the website. So as you can see, carlsbadparksplan.com. At the bottom of the screen, you will see public workshop number 1, that's today. On Saturday at 10 a.m. is when we have the second public workshop. Identical framework, identical questions. So if you've attended today, don't feel the need to have to attend the next one. But if you know others who haven't, please help spread the word and ensure that more people participate in this as well. We want this to be as reflective of the community as it can possibly be. Speaking of community, some demographics and trends information. We use Esri, Environmental Services Research Institute, to look at census tract data and population projections. We nobody actually does have the final 2020 census data yet. So this is based on population projections now and 5 and 10 years into the future. So here's where we are, right? About 112,000 odd right now, projected to be over 100 and almost 123,000 as a total population. As you can see, the largest group going forward is going to be the active adults. I refuse to call them seniors. They don't behave like it, but it's the 55 to 74 population, followed by the 75 plus. Those two combined will make up almost 38%, almost 2 out of every 5 individuals in Carlsbad. Now, at the same time, if you look at the orange and the blue bar, that's about 40% of the population throughout. So an almost equal number is going to be the under 18, the youth, and then the young adults, and perhaps some families as well as the 18 to 34. So very focused on multi-generational experiences as we look at this. As Kyle said, this isn't a specific park plan, it's a system-wide approach. And that's where, based on these demographics and where you're looking at, we're certainly mindful of the aging nature of the overall population, at the same time trying to ensure we provide multi-generational experiences too. From a race and ethnicity standpoint, you continue to diversify to some degree. About 1 in 4 people in Carlsbad will be a race other than what the census calls white alone. And from an ethnicity standpoint, about 1 in 5 people are projected in the next 10 to 15 years to be of Hispanic or Latino origin as well. So keeping from an inclusion standpoint as well, keeping all these facets in mind to then look at the market potential, the market participation index. This is done by a group called Sports and Facility Industry Association. They do this every single year. And the orange bar that you see is the national average for participation in that activity. Anything above that or below that is that many percentage points higher or lower than national average. So as you can see in Carlsbad, everything from volleyball, soccer, basketball, baseball, golf, tennis are all anywhere from 5 to 41% higher than national averages. You already know this. There's a reason you live there as well. People want to be outdoors, be fit, be active, and every single activity is anywhere from 20 to almost 50% higher than the national average. So certainly fitness and wellness will continue to be a focus as we think in terms of programming priorities, facility amenities as well for the future. So having shared this with you, slightly growing, slightly aging, somewhat diversifying, very active from a fitness, wellness, and sports standpoint, that's what the community is and is projected to be. So with that in mind, I have a few other questions we'd like to ask you. And this has to do more with your usage of the parks and the facilities, as well as the quality and the access to them as well. So let's take a look at these questions. These are the 4 questions here as well, starting with how often do you use any parks, programs, trails, facilities? Choose the top 3 programs that you participate in the most. From an access standpoint, just a yes, no, do you live within a 10-minute walk to a park or a trail? And then how often do you travel to your nearest local park? So we have these 4 questions. Take your time and we'll share the results once we get them. All right, everybody. I see about almost 80% of you have answered. This is great. I see quite a few questions are still in the chat box. Just a reminder, if you would please type in the questions in the Q&A portion. Also, there are a number of other questions coming up where you will see the options for community gardens, as well as many of the other amenities listed here in the chat box as well, including pickleball and other sports courts. So going once, going twice, let us end the poll and I will share the results. Okay, so from a usage in terms of how often do you use any of the parks, programs, trails, facilities, majority, 2 out of 3 of you almost use it weekly. Another 21% go monthly. So more than 4 out of 5 at least go monthly, if not weekly, to the various offerings by the city. In terms of program participation as well, a number of different ones. I see special events being really high, about 20%. Sports leagues as well, 12%. 9% for historic programs, as well as swim lessons too. And a number of them have typed in the chat box, from Jane speaking about the conference rooms at the senior center, to Joe speaking about the gardens. Lisa mentions the hikes as well. And Samuel talks about biking, jogging with kids in the stroller. This is great, everybody. Thank you for sharing that input as well. In terms of a 10-minute walk, 71% of you said yes, you live within a 10-minute walk. This is significantly higher than the national average, which is about 55%. It isn't perfect, and that will be one of the goals perhaps of the plan, is to continue moving to 100% of you having that access. But this is still a very encouraging number. And as I see the mix here as well of how you travel to your nearest local park, about 40% said you walk, 50% said you bike, and 56% said you drive. Only one individual, 3%, said I don't visit. I am a little disappointed. I wish somebody would have chosen teleportation, but maybe that's something we'll plan for the next master plan. So from here on, these are the results as well. I just wanted to show those to you very quickly here. This is what the majority of you shared. All right. So I want to now look at the next one, which is communication and barriers to participation. So I'm going to launch these 2 questions as well. The first is about your top 3 preferred means of communication from the city. I have done master plans and worked with cities all over the world for over 16 years now. And your city's communication team is by far one of the best I have seen. The thoroughness, the attention to detail, the focus on maximizing engagement with the community, and frankly, getting the results to have people engaged. This has been phenomenal. So we'd love to see what are your preferences as you go forward with mechanisms for communication. And then what are the barriers? What is preventing you from participating more often in what the city has to offer as well? So take your time, share the results, and we will then see what you have to say. About half of you have responded already so far. Great job, everyone. Okay, about 80% of you have answered as well. We'll give you all just a few seconds more, everybody. Top 3 preferred means of communication from the city and barriers to participation. All right, going once, going twice. Here we go. Okay, so as I look at the communication mechanisms, 94% by far the number one choice was email, followed by 51% choosing the City of Carlsbad website, and then an equal number picking signage in the parks, social media, and text notification or call with 26%. In terms of the barriers to participation, very close, lack of facilities is number one, 34%. Not enough choices and no time are both at 31%. And then I don't know what is offered is 29% here. Few others have said use other providers, no restrooms, poor location, as minimal 3 to 9% as a whole. All right, so I have one more here as a final polling choice as well that I'd like to then run by you. Okay. Now this is really where we get into a number of new facility amenities, existing facility amenities as well, the top programs that you have a need for and want the city to provide more of, and then your satisfaction with the overall quality that you receive from the Parks and Recreation Department. So this is your chance. If you see something here that's already there, great. If you don't see it, please put it in the chat box. Recognize Zoom only allows for 10 options here. So we tried our best, but not everything may be included. And by all means, we would love to hear of any other choices that you have as well. This is the last of the polling based questions. So take your time on this. I will then also show you how you responded to these same questions in the survey that was done last year as well during the in-person public meetings. 4 questions: new facility amenities, existing facility amenities, programs, and overall satisfaction with the value. All right, I see about half of you have participated so far. That is great. Susan, I see you have a question as well. If you wouldn't mind putting that in the Q&A portion versus the chat, please. Okay, everybody, I still see about 60% of you have responded. Waiting on the others. Okay, everybody, let me share the results here. Let's see what people have to say. All right, so I see skate park with 42%. I see more shade structures with 38% here as well. I see an outdoor pool and splash pad as 25% in the top 3. For the existing ones, I see other, and I see a number of people have typed about a bike park as well. Also spoken about bike trails, community gardens, and a few other features. I see about 25% for outdoor pool, 21% for outdoor sports courts, and then an even 17% for playgrounds and picnic shelters. In terms of the existing programs, we need more of as well. Again, I see 21% even between classes and historic programs, and about 17% looking at special events. And in terms of the satisfaction rates, it is about 50% are somewhat or very satisfied, another 17% are neutral, and about 30% have rated somewhat or very dissatisfied. Okay, so I have one last question here for all of you, and this is more open-ended, but there's just one thing, and this is for you to use in the chat box. Here's what I want you to type your response in the chat box, please. If there is one outcome that you would like to see from this master plan, keep in mind what Kyle mentioned, what is included, what isn't included as well. This isn't a site-specific piece. This isn't trails or beaches as well. But from a system-wide master plan standpoint, if there is one outcome you would like to see, what would that be? Please type that in the chat box. All right. Starting to see some notes. Carlsbad should look like a top-tier city. More bike trails, advanced features, bike parks and trails connecting the entire city. A bike park, community gardens in the south part of the city. Outdoor exercise like bike park is planned. Kevin agrees with Joe. Bike parks and trail infrastructure, more facilities and incentives to attract people to bike more and drive less. Grass areas for dog parks off leash. Jerome agrees with Joey Bradshaw as well. He speaks about a system worthy of Carlsbad available throughout the city. Bicycle facilities, bike parks similar to the one in Boulder. Community gardens in all quadrants. A senior-friendly and well-trained senior staff at the senior center. More pickleball courts, connected bike trails. Pedestrian bike path across trails in connection to the coastal rail trail to the south. Large mountain biking park as well, features from Mild to Wild. A big community park, but similar to Holiday Park. Expedite construction of Veterans Memorial, specifically the bike park. See the city, like the city, see the huge growth in cycling, continue to address this to Veterans Memorial. Progression of trails, bike park, community garden. Easily accessed by walking, biking, more bike hiking as well. family-oriented parks, enough sports fields to eliminate constant conflicts, top-tier outdoor community with more pickleball, more bike-specific trails, safe bike routes, additional community gardens. We spent considerable time making a plan for a bike park. All right, this is very, very helpful, everybody. I want to quickly show you what the results were for similar questions a year and a half ago as well. Outdoor sports courts at that time were very high, as were sports fields and the outdoor pool at that time. When we asked in terms of new facility amenities, an indoor gym and fitness center was quite high, followed by sports fields, an outdoor pool and splash pad, as well as a community center followed as well. Programmatically, classes were number one, followed by senior 50+ activities and sports leagues. And then in terms of barriers to participation, similar to this time as well, lack of facilities was mentioned as the highest, followed by I don't know what is being offered. And then, not enough choices, no time, or poor location or too far were some of the others as well. Now, some things have stayed the same, some others are different. I think what is really commendable though is in looking at the last 6 to 7 years since the previous plan was done, how much has actually been implemented. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Kyle, to actually share some of those outcomes as well.
Yes, thank you, Nilay. And again, to speak to the process briefly first, it's really fourfold in this case. It's getting that community vision, and that's part of what we're doing tonight. And we did this dating all the way back to 2013, 2014, which ultimately led to the adoption of the 2015 master plan. And once we had the master plan adopted by council, we not only had a strategic action plan within it, but we took individual work plans from a departmental standpoint for both capital improvement projects on the park side and also for recreation programming. And we put those into play. And we requested the appropriate budget allocation so that we could, in fact, achieve those objectives. And I'm very happy and proud to say that there's been an awful lot accomplished since that 2015 master plan was adopted. And we have some photographic illustrations of that. I won't spend a lot of time on them, but I do want to, again, recognize these coming to fruition as a result of your initial input. And going forward, we intend to, again, match these types of efforts and have additional projects and programs come about as a result of tonight's input. So leading off, we have Leo Creo Ranch stable restoration, which was converted into a recreation space. So it was unusable previously. Now it is a reservable area for recreation programs, classes. You can reserve it for a wedding, for other business meetings. It's just an incredible venue. If you haven't been there, I really encourage you to check it out. Additionally, at the same site, we also rebuilt a replica chicken coop, which actually serves as a restroom facility. If you can move to the next slide, Nilay. So that right there is, again, being cognizant of the history of that site. It mimics the chicken coop and, again, serves our recreational needs because we have large groups coming to Leo Creo on a consistent basis touring the facility. And that's something that was in desperate need, frankly, not only for those tours, but for the weddings and other significant meetings that I mentioned earlier. So again, one example there. Moving on to Pine Avenue Community Center, which is right adjacent to my office here at the Senior Center. Just a wonderful facility, both in the community center in the foreground and the ornamental and community gardens in the background, which we'll show in a moment here. Extremely well used by the public. And again, we developed a master plan for this particular site after the departmental master plan. So as I mentioned before, these are then specific plans where we go and get added input from the community And in this case, community gardens was obviously implemented. This was an early photo after the development. It's really grown in considerably since this time. But you can see the community garden immediately adjacent to the synthetic turf field. Again, every one of those plots is booked and well used. And again, we're encouraged by that. So this plaza area here, I expect to be used even more frequently going forward once we are further out of the pandemic. So one of the areas that people focused attention on previously was having meeting spaces and picnic shelters. Again, we achieved that in this particular plan. So on to the next, Poinsettia Community Park. We had a phased development in this case, and we had 3 different components that went in over the last few years, and that includes this revamped and enlarged playground, now supplying equipment to the 2 different age groups that are common. So it's 2 to 5 and 5 to 12-year-old, whereas before it was a small playground that only catered to 1 age group. And it's dynamic. It's got these great colors and features, and really popular with the community. Again, one of the items that was expressed as a need by the community was more playgrounds. So we were able to address that. And of course, at Poinsettia, we also have our pickleball courts, 6 courts which were developed again as a result of this public input that occurred starting 2013-14. And pickleball is extremely popular, as Nilesh mentioned, and as we've seen in the chat. We realize that there is an interest in getting more courts. So again, it will be something that we are taking to heart. And moving forward, we're also going to look at athletic fields, because that's also something that's in great demand right now. Frankly, there's more demand than there is field space currently. We recognize that, and we want to hear from you further. If a interest in getting more fields is on your top list, then please advise us of that. We were able to accomplish some of those objectives with this arena field, but we recognize that has not resolved all of the needs out there. Also at Aviara Community Park, we created an outlook which has tremendous views. This is actually pointed towards the east, but if we were to flip that around, you've got great views all the way to the ocean. And this is staged as a wedding venue. It's also available for our camps. And this here is a catering support room and combined restroom facility, which again, all came about post 2015. And again, if you have not been to this site since we opened it a couple years ago now, I would really encourage you to do so. It's a beautiful facility, and we really think it's top notch. On to other projects that are still in the works, but in this case, near completed, the Calavera Hills Community Gateway. So that's on the corner of Carlsbad Village Drive and Glasgow Drive, which was originally cited to be a fire station. But when Fire Station 2 or 3, I'm sorry, was relocated to the Robertson Ranch site, we had this available to make it an entry or a gateway to the existing park. And so the construction is nearing completion, as you can tell. We're finishing some punch list items and hoping to have that open up for you very shortly. The outdoor athletic equipment was something, again, that was brought up in the previous needs assessments as to something the community would really strive for. And we didn't have it in our inventory previously. So it's something where we're encouraged to see the use once we're able to open it to you in the next short while, several weeks. And then lastly, a project that's still under construction, back to Poinsettia Community Park, is the dog park, which again, dog parks are in heavy demand, and we have 2 already. There's this one that's obviously already started with the groundbreaking and initial grading. This is a few weeks old, this particular photo, so it's progressed even further since then. And we have yet another dog park that's in the early planning stages at Village H as well. So again, just to me shows that we've taken this input and we've actually been able to create tangible results, and the community is benefiting from those projects. And lastly, on the project front, I will say that Veterans Memorial Park is in the final master planning stages. I know there's been a couple of chat comments in there, and Veterans does have a bike park in it. Again, something that was heavily requested. And so that is due to come back to council in 2022 for final adoption. And then we move forward to getting construction documents together and actually bidding it for construction. So certainly we are hearing your comments, and we're taking them to heart. And that goes for recreation programming as well. So if we jump to expanded culinary programs, this is a shot actually at our new Pine Avenue Community Center. Upstairs in the teen center, there is a small kitchenette. And so this particular class is being held at that kitchenette. So it really shows the use of both the new facility and the expanded program in that photo. Likewise, we've expanded our youth basketball programs. This is an example from looks like Calavera Hills, but we also again have basketball gymnasiums at Stagecoach and Pine Avenue Community Centers as well. And we've also expanded our fitness and wellness programs. This is an example of an event, Superheroes Obstacle Race, which again has great popularity in the fall time. And again, we just held this a couple months ago. I really enjoy going out there at Algo Norte Park and watching all the families participate in this. So moving on to other programs, we've introduced cultural arts programs, in this case at Leo Carrillo Ranch. That's where that photo is from. You can see images of Leo's horses there. And then likewise, the next slide is also something that we've expanded at Leo Carrillo Ranch, and that's our environmental education programs. So we have a reptiles camp, and that's what this photo is from right here. He's actually holding what is a snake and giving a demonstration to the children. So that's a program that wasn't in existence several years ago prior to the master planning process. And then winding down here with just a couple more slides, we've expanded our senior programs. This happens to be a shot of our walking group. Again, a regular set of folks that go out and explore various walking paths and trails in the city and parks as well. And then we also have expanded our teen program. This is a set of some awards that the teens received. And again, part of the previous Pine Avenue Community Center we looked at involves a new community center that has a gaming component, which again has become very popular and was made a priority for us based on the input previously received. And then lastly, we've expanded our special events. This happens to be of the recent Festival of Lanterns held in November at Algo Norte Community Park. And this was in particular in recognition of the month of gratitude. So again, that's a growing event that has emerged just in the last 2 years. We did it virtually in 2020, and then we were able to do it in person here just this last month. And again, very pleased with the outcome on that. So I will now be turning it back to Nile to wrap up the presentation, and we'll be able to answer any remaining questions that have not already been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. So just next steps as well, through the input that we're getting now in the chat and through Q&A, the poll responses as well. We have another meeting on Saturday at 10 a.m. Please be sure to help spread the word as well. Based on the input we get from all of these two meetings, we've been constantly getting feedback on the website as well, carlsbadparksplan.com. So all the input that we get, we will then work with staff as well as ETC Institute, which is a statistically valid survey, statistically reliable survey conducting firm, who will then be mailing these surveys to households randomly throughout Carlsbad early in sometime mid-January to have the statistically valid survey by mail or by phone, as well as an online link that can be used per household. That same survey questionnaire then will also be replicated on the project website through SurveyMonkey. That will not be statistically reliable, but the questions will be identical So we can then match the responses with one, a statistically reliable random sampling process that looks at the entire community and users and non-users, and contrast that with the online only survey to get a sense of what are truly common priorities, and then what might be things that may be higher in one versus the other. As I said earlier, both of those pieces will then help drive the recreation program and the senior program plan. The two survey instruments will be done in the first quarter of next year, between Jan, February, and March. We'll share the results on the website once we have them as well. And then the recreation program plan and the senior recreation program plan both will be completed by May or early June next year as well. The goal for the entire plan is to be done by fall of next year as well. So we are very much on track. Your input drives all the process from here on as well. So I want to thank you all for your time and your input. Please know that your input drives this. As Kyle showed, all of those pieces came out of your input through various mechanisms in the previous plan. And I am just excited to see what this plan results in, that we can look back 5 years from now and knowing your city's track record, knowing what the staff has done. I know this isn't a plan that's going to sit on a shelf. This is a plan that is going to be implemented. So we have a few minutes. If anyone has any other comments as well or questions, we're happy to answer them too at this time. So I see a question here, Kyle, if you want to speak to that as well, and I can then certainly add to it. Are there any plans to expand the park standard in terms of acres per 1,000 people in Carlsbad?
There is no immediate plan to expand that park standard. So it is a performance standard that is tied to our growth management plan, and in particular, the citywide facilities improvements plan. It is 3 acres per 1,000 people currently. It doesn't mean that we can't exceed that mark, but that is a minimum requirement. And with the master planning completion of Veterans Memorial Park, we will be adhering to that 3 acres per 1,000 standard in all quadrants of the city.
And I saw another note after that, just from Trudy as well. Hi, Trudy. It's good to see you here too. And thank you for your input as well. Okay, not seeing any other. Oh, we have another question here. Kyle Page talks about what plans are there to add more parks in the southwest quadrant.
So twofold, I would say. Initially, there is a interest by the city council to explore the realignment of Carlsbad Boulevard, which would potentially free up significant open space that could be developed into parkland. I anticipate that will be further explored at next Monday's strategic planning session by the city council, and certainly something that I think many people are encouraged by. It is an opportunity for as much as 60 additional acres of open space to be explored as parkland. And there are, of course, other opportunities that we remain open to if, in fact, there were preserve areas that become available for natural open space, not developed parkland. We have an open space acquisition committee that is continuously looking for any willing sellers at a market value. So again, those would be the considerations moving forward.
Kyle, Linda has a question about plans for expanded park at the power plant site.
That is a possibility, only if it goes through a council review, and something that certainly I think many people have an interest in. So again, I would encourage you to express that in your comments now, and we'll record that. But there is a significant way to go on that particular site. There may be an opportunity for open space recreation there. It's just too premature to be able to commit to that. But certainly, again, it's something that we will continue to be looking at, and the council will going forward. And I was also reminded that going forward, the council will be looking at their next phases of growth management. So although there is no immediate plan for the increase of acres on the parks performance standard to be increased, it's something that certainly could be done as a result of that next phase of the growth management plan. So it's something I anticipate, again, the council will be further considering as we move forward.
Great. All right, I don't see anything else. Mitchell, thank you very much too. Thank you for everybody joining in, and please continue coming back to carlsbadparksplan.com to check on the plan's progress and stay engaged. So have a great evening and best for the holidays, everybody. Thank you.